Throughout the day today, Israel has faced multiple heavy rocket barrages, including one of 25 rockets in the lower Galilee area and another of at least 85 missiles targeting Haifa and Akko, with dozens of the rockets being intercepted and others falling in the area. A school was damaged in the attacks by one of the missiles, and a residential building was damaged in the north as well. One elderly woman in Haifa was injured lightly in the attacks. The IDF has expanded its presence in Lebanon to 3 full divisions and launched massive waves of airstrikes while ordering more Lebanese civilians to evacuate for their safety. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The IDF is expanding the military operation in South Lebanon, increasing deployment to 3 full divisions. Currently, the 98th and 36th divisions are in Lebanon, and Division 91 has now been added. The deployment in Lebanon is expected to reach 5 divisions, the maximum deployed earlier in Gaza. Israel's raids in South Lebanon have focused on Hezbollah's centers of gravity in South Lebanon villages, where troops have so far found massive amounts of weapons. The army announced that 2 Israeli reservists serving in the northern border were killed in a mortar attack amid the swiftly widening offensive against the Hezbollah terror group. The deaths bring the IDF toll since launching its ground offensive in Lebanon to 11. Meanwhile, the Air Force completed a large-scale aerial operation. 100 Air Force fighter jets attacked Hezbollah sites for an hour in massive strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure. More than 120 terror targets were hit, including a rocket array and Hezbollah's intelligence headquarters in South Lebanon. The IDF issued new calls to Lebanese civilians in more than 24 villages and towns in South Lebanon to evacuate immediately and head north of the Awali River. Heavy rocket fire has been pounding northern Israel. Barrages of missiles have targeted Haifa and the upper Galilee during the past 24 hours, leaving damages to homes and causing fires in open areas. Remains of Hezbollah rockets shot down by air defense fell in numerous communities. Rocket fire from Gaza and a single rocket fired from Yemen targeted Tel Aviv and set off alarms, forcing residents of greater Tel Aviv to shelter. The rockets were shot down or fell in open areas, and only minor injuries were reported.
לפני שעה קיבלנו פה דיווח על נפילה במרחב חולון. רקטה שנורתה מעזה, נפלה פה בשטח פתוח, ללא נפגעים. אחרי סריקות פה בשיתוף פעולה עם המשטרה, כיבוי אש ועם מד"א, ללא נפגעים. יש נזק קל מרסיסים במרחב.
In recent days, the Home Front Command has stiffened instructions in some areas. Alerts are still rare in the center of the country, but for Haifa and northern residents, the Hezbollah attacks are now a daily event.
Hamas still fired rockets at our civilians, not in the north, not in the south, here in central Israel. They managed to land rockets in a central community where the rocket hit right outside of the front door of this family's home. Unfortunately, there were 2 individuals who were lightly injured, but because they listened to the instructions of the Home Front Command and the Israel police, they were only lightly injured.
Well, Israel's expansion into Lebanon is not a surprise, but the question on everyone's mind is when and how is Israel going to respond to the Islamic Republic of Iran? Now, here to speak with us about Israel's current 7-front war is Colonel Miri Eisen, a senior fellow at the Institute for Counterterrorism. Colonel Eisen, always a pleasure to have you on. Can you shed some light on the situation between Israel and Iran? What do you expect that we'll see in the coming days, weeks, and which targets is Israel focusing on inside of Iran?
The Islamic regime of Iran, in its own way, is kind of like the head of the octopus or the snake. It's the one that for over 40 years has had such an extreme ideology, very much when it comes to Israel. They're the ones who talk about the annihilation of the Zionist entity. Khamenei is the one who calls us the cancer of the world. So when we're talking about an Israeli retaliation to what is not just one, it's already 2 overt direct attacks of the Islamic regime of Iran against Israel, to the fact that they supply all of the weapons you can see, not only for themselves, but to the Houthis in Yemen, to the Hezbollahs, both in Iraq and in Syria, and of course to Hezbollah in Lebanon, I expect the Israeli reaction, the Israeli action more correctly, to be one that goes after what I'm going to call the Islamic regime. That means it needs to be the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. It could be the nuclear sites, but it's very much going to be something where it's about that Islamic regime. It's not about the Iranians. It's not about the 90 million Iranian Persian-speaking people. It's about the regime that is the worst destabilizer in the entire world, certainly within the Middle East.
Now, it's been said that Israel may be holding off on targeting the nuclear sites. Would this be a strategic mistake in your eyes? And can Israel do the job to deter this regime, as you mentioned, without striking the nuclear program?
There are different opinions when it comes to, do you want to do it and then get it done, or do you not want to do it? And there's a different aspect I want to add in. When we're talking about the Islamic regime of Iran, Emily, to me, the most important part is that this is not about the Islamic regime of Iran against Israel. We're the little Satan. The United States is the big Satan. Khamenei has threatened European countries, not just Israel, which they do all the time, or the United States, meaning that looking at the attack against the Islamic regime, that's something that the Western world, that the open free world should be doing together. So should we or should we not attack the nuclear sites? My two bits are, can anybody who's listening to us right now think what would have been in the last year if Iran was nuclear? That's where I am on that subject. I think that that's a game changer for the world. And yes, it needs to be taken care of.
Now, in Lebanon, we have already seen several incidents targeting our troops on the ground inside of Lebanon. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit about the fact that we're hearing already that 2,000 Lebanese have been killed. We've already heard criticism of Israel for their activity in Lebanon, claiming that they're targeting civilians. What are we seeing from Hezbollah? How do they endanger civilians inside of Lebanon? What are the kinds of things that we're seeing on the ground?
What Hezbollah has done is the blueprint to be able to succeed and give yourself defense as a terror entity. They bring in all of the weapons. They don't put them in bases. They put them inside people's living rooms. They rent out the garage and put it into the garage. And they've built an entire subterranean underground system, very similar to what Hamas has done in the Gaza Strip. So we have that blueprint. If I build myself inside the civilian community with all of these weapons and this enormous arsenal, then I am protected. What has Israel done? And day after day, including today, we tell the civilians to leave. We're telling them, save your lives. Don't be in your house if you have allowed somebody to put a cruise missile in your living room. Emily, you and I would not allow somebody to put a cruise missile in our living room. That if you've rented out something to Hezbollah, you know that. Move, save your lives. It doesn't make it easy. It most definitely is disruptive, extreme and harsh on Lebanese, but this is Hezbollah. They are this non-state entity with the 10th largest arsenal in the world, and they get to do whatever they want. I'll add in, Hezbollah is not just bluster. They have real capabilities. We also have built amazing defense systems. We still have lots of going on here, which we describe between the sirens and the alarms, and that's part of our protection. But Hezbollah has fired into Israel from October 8th 12,500 rockets. I'm not even talking about the UAVs and the drones. And they have capabilities and they are going to use them. We have our defense systems. But in that stage right now, Israel is targeting these enormous arsenals, both along the border, that's where the troops were that were supposed to attack Israel, the Radwan forces, but also at the heart of Beirut and other cities. And as I've always said before, I would not allow somebody to build as the basement in my apartment building, a bunker that holds an enormous amount of weapons. And this is a horrific aspect, and there's no nice way to go about it. Tell civilians to leave, uninvolved are going to get out, and then go in and attack.
Absolutely. Well, we are out of time, but I want to thank you, Colonel Miri Eisen, for your insight. As always, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
Last night, Israel united to mourn the October 7th massacre by Hamas, in which over 1,200 Israelis and foreign nationals were murdered in acts of inhumane savagery that shocked the world. On Monday night, Israelis from across the country gathered to mourn and remember the victims of the October 7th attacks by Hamas, in which more than 1,200 were murdered. 251 people were kidnapped, including children, and thousands more were injured. The national ceremony event was held in southern Israel in Ofakim, despite the ongoing war, rocket fire in the north and south, and 101 hostages who remain in Hamas captivity. During the ceremony, Prime Minister Netanyahu pledged to continue the fight against Hamas, Hezbollah, and any other terror entity, promising to return residents to the north to their homes, which they've been displaced from for a year.
ב-7 באוקטובר הוטלנו למערכה גורלית, אבל לא הוכרענו. ההפך הוא הנכון. אנחנו אלה שפועלים להכריע ולהרתיע את אויבינו. וכפי שקרה לא פעם בתולדות ישראל, דווקא ברגעי הקושי, פורצים מתוכנו כוחות פנימיים כבירים. התייצבנו יחד להגנת ארצנו, להגנת מולדתנו.
As a result of the ongoing hostage situation, an alternative memorial ceremony was also held in Israel by the Hostage Families Forum in Tel Aviv. The overarching message of the alternative ceremony was a criticism of the Israeli government, which the hostage families believe has failed in the last year to bring our hostages home.
To the Israeli government, I say, look, this is how it's supposed to look. It's not about you. It's not about the government. You failed. It's about the families. We will decide how the future looks because we have paid the most unbelievable price on October 7th and after that.
Participants in the alternative ceremony stated that the Israeli government has thus far lacked strategic vision needed to bring our hostages home. Regardless of government criticism, however, the entire state of Israel mourned the events of October 7, 2023, and the tragic loss of life on that day that changed the course of Israel's history. Marking a year since its attack on Israel, Hamas issued a defiant propaganda video promising more attacks while threatening the safety of Israeli hostages. The tape release came amid reports that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar is alive and has renewed contacts with Qatar.
According to several media sources in the Arab world, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar has reestablished indirect contact with Qatari mediators. There had been no contact reported with Sinwar for several weeks, and there was growing speculation that he could have been killed in an Israeli bombardment in Gaza. Senior Qatari diplomats are now saying that there have not been direct contacts with Sinwar, but there have been negotiation efforts through senior Hamas political figure Khalil al-Khaya. Meanwhile, the Hamas armed wing, defeated in the battlefield after a year of war with Israel, managed to release a defiant propaganda video marking the October 7th massacre and threatening the fate of 101 Israeli hostages still held in Gaza.
إلى نفق مظلم ومغلق ومؤجل إلى أجل غير مسمى أي ربما يكون 100 رون أراد جديد يلوحون في الأفق ليكون ذلك أكبر علامة فشل استراتيجي وأخلاقي للعدو في تاريخه.
Ron Arad was an Israeli navigator whose plane was shot down over Lebanon, and he is missing since 1986. He was held by terrorists. He is presumed dead, and the location of his body unknown.
The U.S. showed strong and continuing support for Israel as it marked the first anniversary of the Hamas attack. Prime Minister Netanyahu received a visit from 2 leading U.S. senators visiting Jerusalem, and President Biden lit a candle for the Israeli and U.S. victims. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
Prime Minister Netanyahu told the visiting lawmakers that Israel had bounced back from last year's attack and was winning the war.
I deeply appreciate the visit by Senators Graham and Blumenthal on this day of commemoration of October 7th. It was the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, but unlike the Holocaust, we fight back. And we're fighting like lions with the support of the American government, the American people, and its representatives who are so well represented here. I want to thank you both for your stellar support for Israel throughout the war.
The visiting senators gave assurances that they have Israel's back on both sides of the aisle.
Mr. Prime Minister, we're honored to be with you, and we appreciate your giving us this opportunity to speak with you on this really agonizingly difficult day for your country and the people of Israel and all of us in the United States who feel so deeply that it was an absolutely abhorrent, inhumane attack on the Jewish people. And we're here to say we have Israel's back. And Israel has a right to defend itself.
In Washington, U.S. President Joe Biden paid tribute to the victims of Hamas's terror onslaught that sparked the war in Gaza, joining several world leaders who marked the solemn first anniversary with calls to release the hostages still in captivity.
Well, a year of war isn't easy for anyone, but for some Israelis, it's taken a significant financial toll, and making ends meet has become harder than ever. In cases like this, organizations like Yad Ezra v'Shulamit are stepping in to provide for families who have fallen into poverty with a variety of services and aid work. Here to speak with us about their efforts is celebrity chef Jamie Geller. Jamie, thanks so much for joining us today. To start, how is Yad Ezra v'Shulamit handling Israel's current situation, and how are they responding to this urgent need, even for food, during the ongoing missile attacks?
Thank you, Emily, so much for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Unfortunately, I do not have good news. Right now, Yad Ezra v'Shulamit has been tasked with feeding 1,000 additional families up north. And we every single day are sending up our trucks. We have 25 drivers that are going up daily to bring food to the north. The trucks carry food for over 200 families each one. And it is just a situation, as you know, with the ongoing rocket fire, missiles, sirens, people homebound, people who don't have food to put on their table on a good day. And now they can't even leave their homes. They need to be by the shelter or basically living out of their shelters.
Unbelievable reality you guys are dealing with on the ground there. What kind of support do you need from the public to keep these heroes who are braving rocket fire in the north to deliver food to families? What kind of support are you guys looking for in order to continue this critical work?
I'm so happy that you called them heroes, because they are. In this war, everyone in Israel is a form of a soldier. Everyone in Israel is a form of a hero. And these truck drivers are no less than heroes. They are putting their lives at risk every single day. You can see right now the video. This is from one of our drivers who has gotten out of the truck in a totally open area and is only protecting himself by laying on the ground and covering his head. And you can see on the distance, the sirens are blaring, if you can hear it. And in the distance, just literally bomb after missile after missile after missile, explosion after explosion. Is such a scary situation. Yet every single day they go back and forth, even though they are sure to be caught under a siren or missile fire. And they go back and forth every single day. We need help protecting them. We need protective gear. We need a proper helmet and a proper vest for all of our drivers. It actually takes $1,550 to outfit and protect each of our drivers. So we need a lot of help from you to keep these heroes who are keeping people fed up north, even in the middle of the war.
Now, Yad Ezra v'Shulamit has been providing essential services to tens of thousands of Israeli children and families since 1988. How has the current war exacerbated the poverty crisis, and what more can be done to support these more vulnerable populations?
So, on a good day, Yad Ezra v'Shulamit has children's centers that feed 600 children a warm meal, their only warm meal of the day in the afternoon. We provide hundreds of vouchers to widows and orphans. On a good day before the war, 12,000 food baskets that even include baby formula per week go out. And now there's a whole population of new poor, of new war-torn widows and orphans who don't know how they're going to put food on the table. The economic situation here in Israel is dire due to the war. People who have lost their jobs, who were givers last year, who are now need to be on the receiving end. Plus, evacuees, refugees in our own country, more displaced from the north, people who are homebound. So everything has just been elevated to a degree that we never, ever could have imagined. Yad Ezra v'Shulamit is there for anybody that needs a helping hand to feed all of the poor of Israel, including, as I mentioned, the new poor. And now we need to protect the drivers who are getting the food to every corner of Israel, including the north, including the bomb shelters.
Well, you guys are doing incredible work, and I want to encourage all our viewers, if you would like to support this important work, there is a QR code on the screen. Please do scan it and support keeping these heroes, these everyday heroes in Israel safe as they're helping families in need. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a bit about this important work.
Thank you so much. Everyone, if they could please pray.
Republican presidential nominee and former President Donald Trump made a personal prayer visit on Monday to the Ohel, the resting place of Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson, the former leader of the Chabad movement. Trump was joined by the parents and brother of Eden Alexander, a hostage currently held by terrorists in Gaza, as well as Auschwitz survivor Jerry Wartsky and 2 Jewish college students who have faced anti-Semitism on campus. Upon entering the Rebbe's tent, Trump made a donation to the movement. Wearing a kippah, Trump prayed during the visit. His daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner have paid regular private visits to the Ohel before both of his presidential elections. Bishop Robert Stearns of Eagles Wings Ministry was in Israel this week with a delegation of 100 Christian leaders to send a message of solidarity and support for the Jewish people. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman spoke with Bishop Stearns in Jerusalem.
100 Christian believers from 4 nations, including 33 senior pastors, joined a solidarity mission to Israel this week. Despite rising tensions leading up to the trip, not a single participant canceled or backed out. All expressed that they felt they had to be in Israel, standing with the nation during such a critical time. The mission, the 4th of its kind since October 7th, was led by Bishop Robert Stearns, founder of Eagles Wings Ministries.
We believe that it's urgent for Christians around the world to mobilize not only in prayer, but in practical support for Israel and the Jewish people.
The mission took place in Jerusalem on October 6th, marking the 20th anniversary of the Global Day of Prayer for the Peace of Jerusalem. On that Sunday, tens of thousands of Christians around the world gathered to pray for Jerusalem, as they do every year on the first Sunday of October. However, as Bishop Stearns noted, it was providential that this year's event fell so close to the anniversary of the massacre.
The battle that Israel is facing is just the front lines of a greater global war that is being waged, a jihad waged globally. If you think you're safe in the West, if you think you're safe in Europe, you're safe in America, you're deluding yourself. This is a global intifada. This is a global war. And so we're not afraid to come here and stand on the front lines.
Despite the rise of rocket fire and terror attacks, Stearns emphasized that he and his Christian colleagues are steadfast in their belief that Israel can win this war.
We're completely confident that Israel is going to win this war. We know, going all the way back to the parting of the Red Sea, time after time after time, whenever in history Israel's enemies have arisen, God has always prevailed and watched over Israel. The West has got to wake up and understand this is an existential battle for the future of Judeo-Christian civilization. We are with you heart and soul. Chazak ve'amatz, stand strong in this moment. Look to God and be strong in His strength, because we know that He is your defense.
ILTV and Afeka Academic College of Engineering will host a virtual event on October 21st to explore the pivotal role of Israel's high-tech industry in shaping the nation's future. The one-hour event, Israel's Secret Weapon, It's Not What You Think, will provide new insights into Israel's evolving job market, the latest innovations and challenges and opportunities facing the tech sector, especially in light of the October 7th war. Speakers will include Dror Bean, head of the Israel Innovation Authority, and Professor Ami Moyal, president of Afeka College. Plus, you will meet some of the next generation of engineers and innovators who are driving Israel's tech revolution forward. Register now for this free but exclusive event. Scan the QR code on the screen to take part. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with lows of around 19 degrees Celsius or 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, partly cloudy skies and warm weather are expected, as temperatures should climb to reach highs of 30 degrees Celsius or 87 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.